من خير حتى يكون منتهاه الجنة. Today's hadith comes to us from the collection of Imam al-Tirmidhi, where he narrates عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه that the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام said, a true believer will never be satisfied with doing good until he reaches Jannah. Now today I'm filling on behalf of my brother Abdurrahman, and he was doing the topic of seeking knowledge, especially for the younger students here. And so inshallah I'll be looking at this hadith from the angle of seeking knowledge. So I want to look at specifically the part of satisfaction, then the part where it says lan yashba, where a believer will not be satisfied with seeking knowledge. Seeking knowledge here being the act of doing khair, seeking knowledge with the intention of using that knowledge for good to benefit the ummah. So there's two parts of satisfaction here. Satisfaction in this life, satisfaction in dunya, and satisfaction in the hereafter in Jannah, inshallah. Allahumma ja'alna min ahli Jannah, ya Rabb. So satisfaction in this life with seeking knowledge, it presents this beautiful paradox where you think the more knowledge you gain as you're seeking knowledge, as you're on this path, this journey of seeking knowledge, you think that the more knowledge you gain, the more satisfied you become with how much you know. But it's actually the opposite, and that's where the beauty lies. The more you gain, the more dissatisfied you become with how little you actually know, with how much you actually don't know, how much you're missing. And this is summarized in this beautiful line of poetry by Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, where he says, كلما أدبني الدهر أراني نقص عقلي وإذا ما ازددت علما زادني علما بجهلي. That the more I increase in knowledge, the more my knowledge of my own ignorance increases, which is beautiful. Because think about the analogy of, for example, the first person to discover that there's outer space, that there's something outside of this earth that we live on. Technically speaking, they've gained an extra piece of knowledge there, but now they're aware of the fact that there's so much out there that they actually have no clue about. And so now they're so ignorant in the fact, they're so ignorant with respect to outer space. Even though they've gained knowledge, they actually realize how ignorant they are with respect to this topic. So that's satisfaction with respect to seeking knowledge in dunya. Now if you look at satisfaction in Jannah, I heard this beautiful story a few weeks ago. A scholar was once asked, what is the one thing you most look forward to in Jannah? And it was one of the most beautiful responses I heard to this question. Typically, when we're asked a question like this, we answer with something that from this world, right? Something that we know in this world that maybe we can't have or we don't have and we want to have in Jannah. And that's a fine answer, right? But the scholar, he answered that the one thing I'm looking forward to is knowledge. And so you hear that and you're like, you really want to keep learning in Jannah? You haven't learned enough on earth? And the explanation he provides is beautiful. He says that because we have such limited access to knowledge on this earth, I want to reach Jannah and have access to these answers to the questions that I had during this life that I just could not find answers to at all. And in the Quran, Surah Al-Isra, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا, that we've been given a very limited amount of knowledge. We have access to a very limited amount of knowledge. And so we constantly have questions about things in Islam or things in our lives that we can't find answers to. Sure, we find answers in the form of other questions. We get better at questioning the things that we're reflecting on. But we never come to certain final conclusions or an actual answer as to what our question is. But in Jannah he responds, he says that he'll finally have answers to that. And that's a certain satisfaction that you can't actually understand unless you truly understand the value of seeking knowledge. And if you aren't necessarily craving this, being on this path of seeking knowledge, you won't feel like that's a satisfying thing to actually experience. So the bottom line really is that لن يشبع مؤمن من خير حتى يكون منتهى الجنة. When we apply this to knowledge, we realize that knowledge and seeking knowledge and this path and this journey that we have to be on in terms of seeking knowledge, it never ends. It ends with death, but even then, once you reach Jannah, inshallah, there will be more questions answered at that time. يروي الإمام الترمذي عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله عنه أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لن يشبع مؤمن من خير حتى يكون منتهاه الجنة. That a true believer will not be satisfied with doing good until they reach Jannah. صدق رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك